Final Fantasy 16
Yeah.
launched this week. I played a little bit of the demo.
Oh,
I'll be real. I think I have too much on my plate, and I think a lot of other
yeah,
people
I
are in the
get it.
same bet or same spot. So I don't think I'm going to be playing this anytime soon. What's your
I get
stance on
it.
it?
I really like it. I played the demo like a few weeks ago when a lot of people were like, "Oh, you gotta play this," but then I was still like playing Diablo, and at one point I was like, "I hear so many good things about it. I know I'm gonna play the full game. Let's just pick it up." And kind of blown away by how mature it was. I thought overall this was like a really good showcase of why demos still make sense because the like a lot of people like Final Fantasy is always an interesting sort of series, and I think Square Enix is kind of struggling with that, where they have the fans, they will be there day one, but how do you like convince the other people? And for some reason, a boy band going on a road trip with a car in a fantasy world was more appealing than a medieval fantasy game, Final Fantasy 16, that takes a lot of cues from Game of Thrones and stuff. So yeah, they kind of had an uphill battle, and they showed it, of course, many times during showcase. So I think at one point people were like, "Looks cool, I guess." But then playing the demo, you really see the production value, the cutscenes. Like you're watching like a Final Fantasy movie sometimes with how massive and huge all these icons, these sort of godlike monsters are that are fighting. I am like, it's a massive game. It's like 40 hours to do the main story. Um, One of the critiques I have is that the demo really shows this super narrative focused cutscenes. Like you're, I think, like 45 minutes watching cutscenes, and the rest of the time you're playing. It changes, of course, later on, but there are a lot of sort of like the pacing takes kind of a nosedive. Sometimes you have kind of these very hype moments where you have just like in the demo these like huge bosses fighting. Like every time you're like, this feels like the final boss battle in any other game, but it's like the first boss that I'm encountering. And there are many of those moments throughout the game. So it's worth it to keep playing for that. I think the story is interesting enough. The combat is really, really good. And they like drip feeds a lot of new powers. You're like in a lot of other games, it feels like you have a skill tree. And sure, there will be some upgrades here and there, but here you're constantly getting new powers. You're like, I want to use all of them. I can only choose 3 of them, while there are like way more in the game. Um, they are like doing way less of an RPG, of course. Final Fantasy, yeah, one of the like very well-known JRPGs. They're really focusing more on the action part of it. So there are some items that do have an interesting impact on your gameplay, but you're also finding a lot of items that just give plus 12 attack, and you're like, okay, is that it? There are like 2 gear slots and 1 weapon slot and 3 as accessories. So there's not a lot there, but I still think if you love the demo, you will probably love the full game as well. And it's a special game, and I just love that they're really going crazy with these cutscenes, with these boss fights where you have multiple stages. Every time you're like, oh, I need to take a break from this boss fight. It was amazing. And then suddenly there's like an even crazier boss fight waiting for you a few minutes later. It's like, wow. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of blown away by some parts, but it's still like it's still a game. No, it's still like hey, I need you to kill these freaking chocobos that are harassing the villagers. They are still like, it really feels like they're trying to make this game longer than it was. If they just like went from cutscene to big boss battle to big boss battle, it would have still probably been a 20-hour game. For some reason, they felt the need to go for the 40 hours. So yeah, also have to run around and do some stuff that you don't really care about. But yeah, the combat is so great. So
And
I'm
I
having
think
a
that's
blast.
that's part of the reason a lot of people have been like me interested but almost intimidated by it at the same time, because we still have Diablo, we still in some cases have Tears of the Kingdom to finish, we have all of these games on our to-do list, and
Yeah,
it's like Final Fantasy 16 looks great. I just don't think I'm going to get to it anytime soon, so I'm going to
I'm
wait.
yeah. I get that, but I think what Diablo and Zelda are, they're really gameplay focused, and that's why I think playing this game is really cool, because it finally has those huge narrative moments, those cutscenes where you're like, "What the heck is going on?" And in those other games, it feels like the gameplay and how you approach the situation is way more key. Here's like a very linear game. There are some open spaces, but it's more just like to give you a feeling that the world is big, but you're still like moving through zones in like a linear path. But it's those cutscenes that are like, oh my god, this guy is like turning into a freaking god. Everything around me is like, they're not holding back in any regard, and that's kind of insane. You're not never. I think they went like, we can't do that. Our budget like won't allow it. No, go crazier, go crazier, go crazier. So that's why I think in this year where we didn't have like the cinematic experience on this level, I think, yet. So that's why I still think, even if there are a lot of other games, this is worth it.
He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.